The day before my wedding, my fiance's family tried to rewrite history by painting my benefactor mother as a pathetic social climber. They mistakenly believed I would swallow that lie. But instead of walking down the aisle, I followed the trail of their deceit, which led me to a confrontation where they lost everything. My mother was the kind of person who could make flowers grow on barren ground. She was my sun, my moon, and all of my stars, especially after my father passed away when I was young. She worked tirelessly, not just for me, but for others. She had a heart that saw need and filled it, quietly and without fanfare. This is how she met the DuPonts. Jack and Donna were struggling, on the verge of losing everything. My mother, with her characteristic grace, stepped in. She never called it charity. She called it a partnership, a belief in their dream. She helped them start the restaurant that would become their legacy, the Gilded Spoon. Growing up, I saw Jack and Donna as an extension of our family. Their daughter, Lydia, was my childhood friend, and eventually the love of my life. When I proposed, it felt like the perfect, beautiful culmination of our shared histories. I believed we were building on a foundation my mother had helped lay. The night of our rehearsal dinner was meant to be a celebration of that future. The room was filled with laughter, friends, and both our families. I was looking at Lydia, thinking how lucky I was, when her father, Jack, stood up to give a toast. He started with the usual pleasantries, but then his tone shifted.
We owe a lot to many people.
He began, his eyes scanning the room.
And of course, we must acknowledge Michael's mother, a very persistent woman. She saw something in us, and she inserted herself into our lives. It was a lot to handle. Her constant presence, her endless suggestions. A real nuisance at times, if I'm being honest. But in the end, her meddling pushed us to succeed, if only to prove we could do it on our own.
He smiled, and a few people tittered uncomfortably. His wife, Donna, sitting next to him, patted his hand with a smug look on her face.
He's right.
She added, her voice dripping with condescension.
She was a force of nature. You simply couldn't get her to leave you alone. But we are, of course, grateful that her overbearing nature led to this.
She gestured around the restaurant. The air was sucked out of my lungs. They were describing my generous, selfless mother as a pushy social climber. They were twisting her kindness into a character flaw, painting themselves as victims of her generosity. I looked at Lydia, expecting her to be horrified, to leap to my mother's defense. But she just sat there, smiling faintly, a placid look on her face. She met my eyes for a fleeting second, then quickly looked away. In that moment, the woman I loved became a stranger. The silence from her was louder than her parents' insults. Her brother Ryan, sitting at the end of the table, wouldn't look at anyone. He just stared at his plate, his jaw clenched. The rest of the dinner was a blur of shock and a cold, creeping anger. Later that night, back at our apartment, I felt a desperate need to connect with my mother's memory. I had given Lydia my mother's most prized possession, a small antique silver locket. It was her grandmother's, and it was all my mother had left of her own family. I went to Lydia's jewelry box to hold it, to feel that connection. But it was gone. When I asked her about it, she became defensive.
Oh, I must have put it somewhere for safekeeping.
She said, waving a dismissive hand.
With the wedding tomorrow, I didn't want to lose it. Don't worry about it, Michael. You're overreacting to everything tonight.
Her casual lie was the final crack in the facade. They hadn't just insulted my mother. They were trying to erase her, and something told me the missing locket was a part of it. I'm sitting here now. The wedding is in less than 12 hours, and my whole world has been turned upside down. Am I crazy? Am I supposed to marry into a family that despises the memory of the woman who made my life possible? Am I supposed to pledge my life to a woman who sat by and let it happen? I feel like I'm standing at a crossroads and every path leads to ruin. Am I overreacting, or is this the biggest red flag in history? What should I do? Thanks for listening. If you want to see how this story unfolds, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and please, let me know in the comments what you think I should do. I could really use some advice right now. The morning after the rehearsal dinner, I woke up before dawn. The flood of comments on my post was overwhelming, but a single, clear message echoed through them all. Do not get married. Postpone? Investigate. Your gut is screaming at you for a reason. So that's what I did. I called Lydia and told her the wedding was off. The ensuing conversation was a hurricane of tears, accusations, and feigned confusion, but I held firm. I needed answers. My first step was to talk to the one person at that table who looked as horrified as I felt. Lydia's brother, Ryan. I met him for coffee, and he was a nervous wreck. He kept looking over his shoulder as if his parents might materialize out of thin air.
Look, Michael,
He stammered.
I love my sister and they're my parents, but they've always been like that about your mom. They hated that she saved them. My dad saw it as a personal failure, an insult to his pride. They called her their shameful secret behind her back for years. The speech, that was for them, to finally set the record straight in their own minds.
He confirmed my worst fears. The disrespect wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a long festering resentment. Then I asked him about the locket. He paled.
Lydia was asking about it for weeks.
He admitted.
She kept saying she needed to see what was inside, that it was important for our family's future. I don't know why, I swear.
His words sent a chill down my spine. This was about more than just feelings. This was transactional. My mother had always referred to her involvement with the DuPont's restaurant as a business partnership, a term I'd never paid much attention to. Now, it was all I could think about. I spent the next few days in my mother's attic, sifting through boxes of old documents. It was a painful process. Each letter and receipt, a fresh reminder of her meticulous nature and of my own failure to understand the complexities of her life. I found letters mentioning investments and transfers to Jack DuPont, but nothing that looked like a formal contract. When I approached Jack directly, he was all blustering denial. He claimed my mother had been a minor silent investor and that he had bought out her tiny share years ago for a token amount as a favor. He said he had the paperwork to prove it, but that it was in deep storage and would take weeks to find. It was a classic Stonewall. Lydia, meanwhile, kept calling. Her tone shifted from pleading to anger.
I can't believe you're tearing our lives apart over a misunderstanding.
She cried in one message.
My parents apologized. You're letting your grief for your mother years after she's gone destroy our future. You're being selfish, Michael.
Selfish. That word again. The very thing my mother taught me never to be. They were using my own values against me, trying to gaslight me into believing that defending my mother's honor was a selfish act. But the more they pushed, the more I knew I was on the right path. They are hiding something big. The missing locket, the rehearsed speech, the financial stonewalling. It's all connected. They are trying to bury a truth they don't want me to find. So, here's my question for you all. They're trying to paint me as the villain while systematically erasing the woman who built their kingdom. How do I find the proof they're so desperate to hide? What would you do next? The comments on my last update were a masterclass in creative investigation. You told me to think like my mother. Where would a meticulous, trusting, yet cautious woman hide her most important secrets? It wasn't in an office or a safe. My mother's sanctuary was her garden, and that's where I found it. Tucked away beneath a loose flagstone on the patio was a small, weatherproof safe disguised as a decorative stone. Inside was a leather-bound journal and a single, heavy brass key. My hands trembled as I opened the journal. Her elegant script filled the pages, and the story it told was more devastating than I could have imagined. My mother hadn't been a minor investor. She wasn't just a benefactor. She was the primary foundational partner in the Gilded Spoon. She had funded the entire venture, the documents, the original partnership agreement. Everything was in a safe deposit box at her bank. The journal detailed every loan, every strategic decision she had guided, every late-night meeting. She owned 49% of the entire business. The DuPont speech wasn't just an insult. It was a calculated move. Her journal described conversations where Jack and Donna fantasized about being the sole owners, about rewriting their history. My mother believed that my marriage to Lydia would finally, formally, unite the families and secure the business for generations. The DuPonts saw it as their endgame. The final step in a long con to absorb her legacy, her wealth, and her son into their family, erasing her from the equation entirely. And the locket. The truth was ingenious. My mother, worried that Jack might one day try to betray her, had a microfilm copy of the original signed partnership agreement created. A tiny, transparent sliver of film. She had hidden it inside the locket, behind the picture of her own mother. That's what Lydia was looking for. Not a keepsake. A kill switch. She wasn't just my fiancé. She was a soldier in her family's silent war against mine. The anger I felt was cold, sharp, and clarifying. This was no longer about hurt feelings. It was about justice. The next day, I went to the bank. The safe deposit box contained everything. The original, notarized partnership agreement, copies of every wire transfer, even letters from Jack praising my mother's business genius and calling her his savior. I had the smoking gun. In fact, I had the whole arsenal. My first instinct was to burn them to the ground. A press conference, a lawsuit, public humiliation. But then I thought of the restaurant staff, the suppliers, the community my mother had wanted to support. Destroying the DuPonts meant destroying the Gilded Spoon, the very thing my mother worked so hard to build. I couldn't do it. This couldn't be a carpet bombing. It had to be a surgical strike. I made 2 calls. The first was to my family's lawyer, a man who had known my mother for 30 years. The second was to Ryan. I laid out the truth for him, the whole ugly story. I gave him a choice. Stand with the family that had lied to him his entire life, or stand with me and help me preserve the one thing of value they hadn't managed to corrupt yet, the business itself. He was quiet for a long time. Then he simply said, "When and where?" The plan is set. Tomorrow, I am calling a board meeting in the restaurant's private dining room, the very heart of the empire my mother built. My lawyer will be there. Ryan will be there. And I will confront them with the truth. I'm not going to yell or scream. I am going to calmly and quietly dismantle their world. So this is it. The confrontation is happening. I'm going to take back everything my mother built and everything they tried to steal. Do you think they will collapse, or will they come out swinging? Any last-minute words of advice before I walk into the fire? The private dining room at the Gilded Spoon was just as my mother had designed it. Elegant, warm, and intimate. It felt like a fitting stage for what was about to happen. I arrived first with my lawyer, Mr. Davies. A few minutes later, Ryan came in, his face pale but resolute. He gave me a single firm nod. Then the DuPonts arrived. Jack, Donna, and Lydia. They saw my lawyer and immediately tensed.
Michael, what is this?
Jack demanded, his voice booming with false authority.
If this is another one of your emotional episodes,
This is not an emotional episode, Jack, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. This is a board meeting. Please, sit down. I let Mr. Davies take the lead. He calmly laid a copy of the original partnership agreement on the polished mahogany table. He followed it with copies of the wire transfers and the letters. He explained the 49% ownership stake my mother held, an asset of her estate which had passed directly to me. Donna scoffed, though her eyes were wide with panic.
This is absurd. That's an old agreement. It's meaningless.
Is it? I asked, my voice still even. I took a small envelope from my pocket and slid it across the table. Lydia, you were looking for this. Lydia opened it. Inside was the antique locket. Her face went white. I know what my mother kept inside it, I said softly. I know you were trying to find the microfilm, the backup copy of this agreement, to destroy it before I figured things out. That wasn't just disrespect at the rehearsal dinner. It was conspiracy to commit fraud. The room was silent for a moment. Then Jack exploded.
you ungrateful brat.
He roared, slamming his fist on the table.
After everything we did for you, taking you in, making you family, your mother was a leech, and you're just like her.
Lydia finally broke. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at me, her expression a desperate plea.
Michael, please.
She whispered.
We can fix this. I love you. We were going to be a family.
A family? I replied, the ice in my veins finally making its way into my voice. A family is built on truth and respect, not on lies and theft. You sat there while your parents desecrated my mother's memory. You were their accomplice. You tried to steal from me. This isn't a family. This is a hostile takeover. And it ends now. I leaned forward. Here is my offer. And it is my only offer. You will sign over your 51% of this business to me. You will walk away from this restaurant, from this city, and from my life. You will do it quietly, and you will do it now. In exchange, Mr. Davies will not file a report with the district attorney for felony fraud, and I will not go to the press with this story. You get to disappear with your reputation stained, but intact. Ryan, I said, looking at him, has chosen to stay and help me run this business honestly. He will have a future here. You have nothing. The choice was simple. Sign the papers or face complete and utter ruin. Jack stared at me, his face purple with rage, but he saw the checkmate in my eyes. Donna was silently weeping. Lydia just stared at her hands on the table. Mr. Davies produced the transfer documents. One by one, they signed. Their hands trembled. When it was done, I stood up. I took the locket from the table and put it back in my pocket. I didn't look at Lydia again. I just walked out of the room, leaving them with the empire they had built on a lie, now signed away with the stroke of a pen. It's done. I feel empty but clear. I protected my mother. I saved the business. But I had to destroy a family, and the woman I thought I was going to spend my life with. Was this justice, or was it just revenge? What do you guys think? It's been 6 months since that day in the private dining room. The silence that followed the storm was deafening at first. But in that silence, we began to build. The first thing Ryan and I did was call an all-staff meeting. We were honest. We told them there had been a change in ownership, that the business was now in the hands of the family of the original co-founder. We assured them that their jobs were safe, and that our goal was to honor the legacy of quality and care that the restaurant was supposed to represent. The change was immediate. We rebranded the Gilded Spoon to the Founder's Table. We took my mother's journal, filled with her ideas and recipes she'd dreamed of, and we brought them to life. There's a dish on the menu now, our most popular one, named Eleanor's Garden after her. The atmosphere in the restaurant is lighter, happier. The staff, free from the DuPont's oppressive and prideful management style, are thriving. And the business has never been better. Ryan has proven to be an incredible partner, honest, hardworking, and dedicated to atoning for his family's sins by creating something genuinely good. As for the DuPonts, I heard through the grapevine that they sold their house and moved out of state. I've had no contact with them, and I've never felt the need to. The anger has faded, replaced by a quiet finality. Sometimes, late at night, I think of Lydia. I don't feel hatred anymore. I just feel a profound sense of pity. Pity for the person she chose to be, for the love she threw away in the name of greed and a hollow family pride. She could have had a life built on a real legacy. Instead, she chose to chase a lie. Looking back, this entire ordeal taught me a lesson I don't think I could have learned any other way. My mother's selflessness inadvertently taught me to fear being selfish, to always put others first. The DuPonts used that against me. But I learned that fighting for yourself, for your family's honor, for what is rightfully yours, isn't selfish. It's necessary. I learned that true strength isn't just about winning. It's about how you win. I could have scorched the earth. I could have destroyed them completely. But we chose to build instead. We chose mercy over vengeance, creation over destruction. I finally found peace, not in the act of taking back the business, but in the daily act of making it something my mother would have been proud of. I restored her name not by shouting it from the rooftops, but by embedding her values into the walls of the place she helped create. Her memory is no longer a ghost to be defended, but a living, breathing presence felt in the warmth of the dining room and the quality of the food we serve. Thank you all for coming on this journey with me. Your comments, your advice, and your support were a lifeline when I felt like I was drowning. You gave me the clarity and strength to see this through. In a way, you all helped build the Founder's Table too. For more stories, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thank you for watching.